Welcome to the Hidden Why podcast, episode 1093. This is my second interview with Robert Althuis, and we're discussing the field of consciousness. Enjoy. Robert Althuis, welcome back to the Hidden Why podcast. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Lee. I appreciate it. It's a pleasure to be back.
I'm looking forward to this conversation. We spoke with Robert back in episode 1092, only a few weeks ago. Check it out at thehiddenwhy.com. We discussed his book, Love and Truth, and delved into interesting conversations then. And one sort of area that we just sort of skimmed on was this idea of this field of consciousness, which I sort of relate to this energy field that is the universe that we all tap into and tap out of from time to time and probably continually. But how would you describe the field of consciousness and summarize this topic of conversation for us today?
Yeah, beautiful question. So just to set the foundation, consciousness is everything, and you can imagine it having two states. One is unmanifest, and one is manifest. And so the unmanifest is what we call space or ether, or in quantum physics they call this unified field. It's basically everything there is that's not of any matter or form. And then the manifest part of consciousness is everything of form. So everything that, that can be a planet, that can be a star, that can be a tree, that can be an animal, that can be a human being. Anything that has form is manifested consciousness. And it's literally the unmanifested consciousness that goes through a transformation process and manifests itself in some form. Humans just being one of them.
So we're a manifested state of consciousness?
Yeah, we're a fractal. We're a fractal of this bigger consciousness. And, in quantum physics is kind of catching up to this, and it has been catching up for this for about 100 years, because Einstein talked about the unified field. David Bohm, who was a phenomenal scientist, he talked about unfolded and unfolded states. What he was really referring to is the wave state, which is basically space or ether. A particle can be anything. This has been proven by the Higgs boson experiment in Geneva, where they have a 17-mile loop, and they figured out there's these particles, these wave particles, that basically can become anything, and that's quanta. So when you have a cell in your body,
what do you mean they can become anything? Those cells?
Yeah, they're called God particles, and literally referred to in science as God particles, because in the wave state they can become anything. And your DNA, for instance, has 90% overlap with a banana. And so for the most part, your atoms, your carbon, your quanta is the same. It's just being expressed in a different way, which shows up like a form called Lee in a human being. Yeah. Now, when you strip it back a little bit and you make it really simple, it's like, well, how is this possible, right? But somehow, when a giraffe needs to be born and formed and created, two cells and, an egg and a sperm cell come together, and somehow there's an intelligence somewhere, right, that knows how to express a giraffe, or knows how to express an oak tree, or knows how to express, a fish in the ocean, or a human being. So there's an intelligence within us, within this consciousness, that knows how to do this. There's also an awareness to it, because we know from the most smallest single cell organisms, they are aware of their surroundings. There's more than 80 trillion cells in your body communicating constantly with each other. Now, somehow, if you don't call that intelligence, right? And if they wouldn't communicate with each other, and they wouldn't coordinate, and your heart wouldn't know what to do, or your liver, your organ, if something goes off out of harmony, which is homeostasis in biological terms, your body becomes ill. Yeah. So when this communication, this interaction, this intelligence breaks down, we call, in physical level, we get ill. Yeah. Now we see this everywhere in the universe. There's an intelligence to this universe. There's an intelligence. There's a design to life. There's a way that this universe is evolving. Why are all these stars out there? Why are all these planets there? Why does the moon have a certain distance to this Earth? Now, you could call all of this random, but then when you go all the back to the beginning of the universe and you say, well, a bunch of rocks just collided and somehow complex life like human beings evolved from that. that's a really far-fetched story, right? So we have to kind of see, and like the paradox in all of this is that we, because of our sensory organs, we really only see form and matter, and we think that's the only reality that there is. Now, Buckminster Fuller said, that which we call reality is less than 1% of actually all of reality. Most of it you don't see, because it's this unseen universe that is guiding us, that is, feeding us information. Because we know that there's data in energy, because there's data in light. This is quantum physics. This is not like me saying something woo-woo. We know from quantum physics that in energy, in light, there's information. This universe is nothing but information. It is one vast database. Now, one of the reasons the universe is expanding, because you and I every day, just imagine, we have 24 hours of experiences. Experiences are information. And so you and I and every other creature in this universe is expanding this database of information.
Yeah.
Now, we also know from entanglement theory that you can have entangled particles. There can be one particle on one end of the universe and one on the other end of the universe. And if you activate one, the other one moves. So that defies the speed of light. So we know that this entire universe is connected as well. This is all quantum physics, by the way. I'm not talking woo-woo stuff and all this.
When you talk about like light carrying information, how has that been proven, do you know?
I'll tell you one thing that's been, it's a very interesting aspect. So there were some scientists, you can Google this, that took a little strand of DNA, and they were trying to figure out, why do we have this DNA? Well, we know one of the functions is it expresses our form. So this intelligence uses this DNA, reads it like a barcode, and then expresses it in the form. So when we're born, this DNA is in our first primary cells. And it actually is the architectural plan of building the body, right? And then they're like, well, what else is in this DNA? And so they went through these science projects, and then they were like, well, it seems to have a storage capacity. And so they were actually able to prove that you could, like a memory stick, you could download information. They downloaded a book on a strand of DNA, and then they offloaded the same book. So now they're like, wow, this DNA actually also has a storage capacity. Really? Now here's the wild thing. Then they're like, well, how much DNA material do we have in our body, and how much storage capacity is in each of our bodies? Now here's the thing that will blow your mind. So they started like researching this, and you know what they came up with, the kind of conclusion? There's about 13.8 billion years of history that can be stored in our DNA, which is a proof of what Rumi said: you're not a drop in the ocean, you're the ocean in a drop. You are the entire universe, and your DNA has the history of the entire universe in it.
Let's talk about that. So if you die and your body decomposes, what happens with that DNA? Essentially, it would go back into this field of consciousness, right? This information would...
It does, but if you think about your body as being your human avatar, and so at your physical level, you have a physical level, you have an emotional body, you have a mental body, which is the brain that produces the mind. Now, the mind does not produce consciousness, because it's actually consciousness that animates all of this. That's your soul. And we know this because when you go into anesthesia, right, what they're basically doing is they're bringing your mind offline. And now your body can't feel because there's nothing to register pain. So it's your mind that actually registers all this.
So when they talk about consciousness, unconsciousness in the human mind, is that kind of different from...
Yeah. I'll explain that in a minute. And so when you go brain dead, right? Now the body can be kept alive as like a vegetable, but basically your brain is not recording anything, but there's still like life force going through your life that can be sustained. So there's got to be something else than your mind or your emotional body or your physical body itself that animates all of this. Now, what that animates is this fractal of consciousness that you are. You're an individual expression of this larger ocean of consciousness. You can call this your soul. Your soul comes into your body. You can determine, if it's in the moment of conception or 3 months later. I don't want to get into that discussion, but there's something larger within that is timeless, that is eternal, that is animating this. And this is that part of you that leaves the body and then moves on and chooses another human avatar as it reincarnates. So this soul is this eternal piece. That's actually who you truly are. This is the paradox, because we can't really see that thing, and we tend to identify with this human avatar that has beliefs and ideologies, that has feelings, that has a body. So we walk into the wall, we have a scrape, or we break a bone. We identify with that.
But if that soul if that soul comes down and then forms us, I guess then we form this idea of who us is or who I am. But as we depart, that soul goes back up and reincarnates into something else.
It all disintegrates.
It's all the same soul then.
Yeah, it's all the same soul. And there's a lot of study in the University of Virginia around near-death experiences. Very interesting. People describe that there's been thousands of cases researched. What happens after death, and these people have very similar experiences. We won't go too deep into that, but one of the things that happens is kind of this life review, which is very common in that experience. And in the flash moment, they see their entire life as a movie, and they see everything they've done, everything they said, everything they spoke, and they see everything, including all correlations, how it affected other people.
Yeah.
And so we don't go to a pearly gates and we have a big tribunal there with a gray bearded man sitting there judging us. The universal description in these live near-death experiences is that we review our own life. Our soul reviews our own life, and then from that we take the lessons and we carry those into the next life. And this is where we evolve. And so what's the purpose of life? The purpose of life is evolution. Look at this entire universe. What is it doing? It's just evolving. It's just growing. It's just expanding. And you and I are just a fractal of that.
Interesting. So you can only imagine that to intensify and speed up exponentially as time goes on, as the information that you take back in and I take back in and 7 other billion people will eventually take back in.
That's exactly right. And so where is all this going? Well, what it points to is that this consciousness, and I like to stay away from these terms because people get kind of wheeled into religious beliefs. But you could call this entire consciousness. This is what we could call God or Yahweh or monad, oversoul, supreme being. You call it Vishnakara. It doesn't matter what you call it. Like there's dozens and dozens of names for this across different cultures, religions, whatever, but they're all pointing at the same thing. And this grand, infinite intelligence is having an experience through us, but we're actually an integrated part of it. So if you think about, if I'm going to use the word God now, so God is this unmanifested consciousness. God is everything. And in Stoic philosophy, they say, the all is not just in the all is in the all. So everything is God, everything is sacred, and God is having an experience through me. In my human avatar, I'm seeing the world in a very unique way, and nobody is living the exact life that I'm living because I'm experiencing as a 6'5" guy with blue eyes that was born in Holland to these parents and grew up in this neighborhood, in this house with these brothers. And I had these school experiences and this cultural experience and this religious experience. And I went into the world and I had all these adventures. And, now I'm here. This is just one experience. And I'm going to have a relative truth based on my experience. Now, if I was born in Pakistan as a as a woman, I would have had a fundamentally different experience. If I was born in the Middle East, if I was born in Africa, if I was born in Australia, and I was called Lee Martinuzzi, I would have had a totally different experience. So your and I and everybody else's experience is always going to be relative, relative to your, but we're all, in indigenous cultures, even Aboriginal additional cultures, the notion is always you are the center of the universe. And this is actually true. If you start thinking about it, that something larger than me is living through me. I'm just here having this human experience of gaining evolution. I'm adding. So this is why everything is always for your greatest growth, greatest evolution, and greatest prosperity, because they're just experiences. They never
like we're the soldiers of consciousness, just to bring back information to help it improve. Yeah,
that's exactly what's happening. And so if you take this a next step, which is in today's world a very challenging thing to say, because people geopolitically really want to be polarized. But from this level of spirituality, there is no wrong or right. There's just experiences. Now, experiences are here, so we learn. So what happens when you're a young kid and you put your hand on a burning hot stove? Is that a bad experience, or did you just learn something? Right? You learned something. Not smart to put my hand on a burning hot stove. So now look at the world. And we have many ideologies that are very divisive, that have winners and losers. We have many things we do to ourselves, including pollution and poor food. And, we have violent video games, and then we wonder why we have school shootings. And we have a massive military industrial complex that produces nothing but arms and tanks and drones and all kinds of advanced ways of killing other beings. And then we're surprised that there are a lot of wars. Right? And so when you look at these things, and from that perspective, you're like, well, we haven't clearly, there's something is showing us a big lesson right now, what's happening in the world, because it's a human catastrophe. When you strip it all back, all we're seeing is bloodshed and innocent people dying, just fear, violence, genocide, and I'm not picking sides on any. It's just, this is what we as humanity are creating. And so when you look at it, it's like, okay, is this really the way to go? Because we have a couple thousand years with, barbaric and savage wars. Have we not learned? Right? Have we not learned that there are other ways to do things? Now, what we have to do to get there is we have to let go of believing in many of these doctrines that separate us. Because as long as I think I'm different from you, I've created a conflict. But when you strip it all down, strip it down like we're all just human. I can promise you, if I put, and not to be crude, but if I put two dead babies next to each other, and one is Palestinian and one is Jewish, and I wouldn't tell you which one is which, all you see is two dead babies. And that's where our commonality is as humanity. We're all just humans. We're all breathe the same. I was just in Peru. Nobody looks like me, but they're just the same. They're same like me, right?
Yeah.
What does every person, every human being want? They want to be seen, heard, and loved. There's not one single person in this world that doesn't have that fundamental need and desire. And what does that lead to is we want to be happy and safe.
Yeah. How does that relate to the whole field of consciousness? I mean, if we want to be seen, heard, and loved, I mean, why is that so important? When is it so that we can bring back a great experience to consciousness? Is it just to satisfy our individual happiness? And
there's a beautiful there's a beautiful saying. Einstein was really a spiritual prodigy, and I love to refer to him because people, could kind of relate to him. He was a scientist. So one of the things Einstein said, the first thing you have to decide is this is a malignant or a benevolent universe. And this is a way to call it in a neutral way, right? So let's get away from the word God and just call it the universe. And we are all the universe. We're all the entire universe. And so, if you look at it and if you think about it, and I'm gonna read you something because this kind of summarizes it. This is from the introduction in my book. Love is the secret sauce. Love is the only answer. This is the only truth. And honestly, we each know this, although we might not live it. Anything created, empowered, infused, bestowed, encircled, or embraced with love inevitably heals, thrives, grows, flowers, blossoms, unites, harmonizes, regenerates, and creates effervescent beauty in whatever form that might appear. Love is the sacred elixir of life itself, the magical, energetic pixie dust of this universe, that which animates all of creation. Love is infinitely intelligent, wise, and powerful. And when we awaken to this remembrance, the nucleus of divinity deep within us is sparked and reignited. Now, I know that sounds really woo-woo, but think about it. When you cook food with love, that food tastes better. When you turn to your wife or your partner or your kids and you shower them with love, you pour love into them, what happens to them? They come alive, right? When you start a new venture, a business, or a job, and you love what you're doing, it comes alive. It thrives. It starts to grow. It starts to, emit that energy. Love, the energy, is what animates everything.
Yeah.
And it has that intelligence in it. And so when you look at a situation and you say, what would love do? Well, love wouldn't bludgeon other people or kill or offend or hurt or harm.
No.
It wouldn't do that. And we all know this. And we all know we've all met someone in our lives somewhere where maybe we did something wrong. Maybe we made a mistake. And that person met us with compassion. And it made an indelible impact on us because we thought we were going to be chastised or scolded or whatever. And this person just had compassion. Compassion emanates from love. Now, what happened to us in that situation, I can guarantee you it shifted us. Now, imagine that your greatest power as a man, as a human being, as a woman, is to actually have that kind of compassion first to yourself and then express that into the world.
Yeah.
Now, that's how things heal, thrive, grow, prosper. Because there's nobody I've ever heard say, I poured all my love into it and it turned into shit. No, maybe it didn't end up being what you thought it was going to be. But I can promise you, when you pour fear, hate, violence, aggression, being demeaning, if you pour that into something, that's like, pissing vinegar on a flower. It's not going to blossom.
Yeah.
It's not going to thrive.
And everyone can relate to this. Watching negative stuff, watching negative news, watching, negative whatever, consuming negative produces negative, consuming positive produces positive. Surrounding yourself by, well-grounded, healthy people that are driven in your direction will likely enforce that in you too. Whereas the opposite is true,
And compassion, Jesus said, right, let the one without sin cast the first stone. That's a big one.
But the one without sin.
Cast the first stone. This was there was a whole crowd and there was, someone that was going to be stoned. And he said, let the one without sin cast the first stone. And the notion there is are we without fault? Have we never screwed up? Have we never made a misstep? Have we never said something wrong? Have we never reacted in a way that, wasn't that great or beautiful? Have we never cheated anywhere, or maybe lied a little bit, or in my case, I was involved in very high levels of business where there was a lot of greed and corruption and malfeasance, and yeah, I didn't do it directly, but I was kind of part of that machinery. Have we not all been there, right? And so we could just be compassionate to ourselves and say, yeah, I screwed that up. Should have done that better. And then you apologize and you move on. You say, okay, I'm not going to make that mistake again, right? That's how we get better. That's how we grow. That's how we evolve.
Yeah.
But then to have the compassion towards other people is the next step. Because that's where our humanity comes from. That's where you create an environment where people feel like they can actually be flawed and they don't have to be perfect, and because none of us are perfect.
Yeah.
And then on a geopolitical level, this is where you can have completely different discussions. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, this guy's crazy. This is not how the world works. I say, well, it does work that way. Because if all world leaders on the October 7th, the heinous attacks, the unthinkable attacks that Hamas did, but if all world leaders would have, stepped in and said, no, do not go down this road of retaliation. Let's figure out another way to solve this. This was atrocious. This was horrendous.
Yeah.
Innocent people were murdered and slaughtered. But do not go on a road. We have to find a way of compassion, because there's a lot of history to that conflict. Now, if all the world, instead of the US sending 2 flight deck ships and show all their power and basically say you can do whatever the hell you want, what if all world leaders would have said, no, this is horrendous, this is heinous, this needs a response, but it needs a response that comes from love and compassion, because it's not going to solve anything else. This has been going on for 70, 80 years.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it needs something else.
Yeah.
It needs a different solution than war and armed conflict and violence. It needs another solution. Now, maybe we don't instantly know what that solution is, but we can say push the pause button as all world leaders and say, no, let's mourn our losses and say, what can we do here that's intelligent, that we need to solve this, so we prevent another genocide, another regional conflict that can evolve into a world conflict. And in the meantime, tens of thousands of people are dislodged, killed, murdered, and we're repeating ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, like this is not easy stuff.
You think we'd learn after many, many years.
This is a higher level of consciousness. But, Gandhi said, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. There have been very great. Yeah.
Do you think the brain is just a transmitter of this consciousness? Like, we just have this, you sort of touched on a point before about how everything communicates within us, and everything communicates within the universe. Ultimately, and without that communication, there is no homeostasis. But there's got to be, you can learn in the brain through a consciousness, like touch the hot plate. I learn, that's conscious learning, right? But then there's this level of unconsciousness too that we all operate by.
So the brain has a certain level of intelligence, and the brain is really limited from the day we're born. It accumulates all our experiences. This goes into our subconscious, Jungian psychology here, very basic. And then we have a small part of our brain that's conscious. Yeah. Actually, that part of the mind that we can actively control and monitor the thoughts that are created, and we can change the thoughts that are created in the conscious. Now, the conscious brain is only about 5% of our brain capacity. The rest is subconscious. So it's out of our sight, but that's really where our main information goes. Now, to blow your mind a little bit, there's something called a rectangular activating system. And this basically filters the information that comes in. And you filter about 10% of the information that registers on your conscious brain. 90%, the rest, still goes into your subconscious brain, which has an unlimited storage capacity and an unlimited bandwidth to process. Our conscious brain has limited bandwidth. That's why only 10% is registered. I'll give you an example of this. You go into a dealership and you decide, I really want to have that red Mini Cooper. And now you put your purchase order and you start, you're waiting for it to be delivered. 3 weeks later, you drive around town and everywhere you see red Mini Cooper suddenly. You're like, what the heck happened? I just ordered a red Mini Cooper. Now I see it everywhere. Well, by you committing to purchasing it became relevant to you. Those red Mini Coopers were always there.
Yeah.
But now they become, that's your RAS, your reticular activating system. It actually instructs your conscious brain what to register. If you have very negative beliefs in your mind, you are only going to be, that 10% is going to basically grasp everything that's negative and a threat in your environment.
Yeah.
When that 10% is very positive, this is where mindset work really comes in, right? Is you're just going to see opportunities everywhere. It's the same universe. It's the same variables out there. Nothing has changed. You're just seeing something different. Now, there's another intelligence, and this has been proven by the Heart Math Institute, and it's the intelligence of our heart. Now, our heart has about 40,000 neurons, and there's actually more data going from our heart to our brain than the other way around. Our heart is actually a portal, and it's directly connected with universal intelligence. So when you have a precognition, intuition, a deja vu, or any of those things, this is your heart intelligence. When you go into a situation, you go into a room and, some people call it, I just felt the energy or whatever. That's your heart's intelligence. When you go into a party and it's got a great vibe and you feel great and you're like, oh man, this is great. That's your heart's intelligence, not your mind. Now, when you go into a boardroom and there's a sour meeting and, you go in and you just feel, oh, I feel unheimisch here. I want to get out. It's your heart's intelligence. So your heart's intelligence has a language. It's called feeling, intuiting, direct knowing, and sensing. And this is very, very underestimated. It's our feminine intelligence. This is our masculine intelligence in our mind. And since the scientific revolution, we're very oriented towards this rational, direct, logical mind and ideas and dogmas and doctrines and all that. And so then we follow these doctrines and dogmas and beliefs and all that stuff. And then we end up justifying polluting the earth and doing all kinds of things that aren't really that intelligent, but they're conforming with our beliefs. Now, here's the interesting thing. I told you, this manifest and unmanifest consciousness or reality. So the world of form is kind of linear. For me to get from here to there, I have to walk there. It's linear. I can't just transpose myself over there, right? If I want to come to Australia, I got to jump on a plane, travel 22 hours, and I get off in Sydney and now I'm in Australia. Yeah. That's the linear world, the reality, the physical reality that we live in. Now, when I told you this entanglement, that one particle in the universe can be on the other side and they can communicate and it's nonlinear. So our mind can process only the linear world. Our heart's intelligence is in tune with the nonlinear world. No. The nonlinear world is the rest. You can't see because there's no time and space in that world, which we know from the quantum field. There's no time and space there. Yeah. Right. So anything can be instant. Anything can be created. Anything can be, retrieved from that field. This is when someone does an Akashic reading. They're basically reading the field. This has information. We know this. I mean, there's a whole body of science around this.
Interesting. Yeah. Wow.
It's fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
it is.
we as humans, to finish the story I mentioned earlier, we as humans, we only discover things. We don't have ever invented anything. Newton discovered gravity. Gravity was always here. When Pythagoras invented, or discovered the math that he explored, that math already existed. He didn't invent that math.
Already there.
He discovered it. It already existed. And so now you can take that one step further. I said Steve Jobs with the iPod, 1,000 songs in your pocket. That idea already existed in the field. And Steve Jobs connected with it. And then he brought it into creation through Apple and his engineering and all that stuff. But there was an idea that already existed in the field. And this is how you can know that if you have a really, what I call an intrinsically motivated dream, something that is truly in your heart, something that you really feel called to do, create, or be, whether it's, writing a piece of music or writing a book like I did, or maybe starting a business or becoming a mother, whatever it is. It doesn't matter what it is. If this is intrinsically motivated, meaning it's not extrinsically motivated, you're doing it because the world told you to do this. Your mom told you to become a lawyer because lawyers make good money, and now you went on that path and you're miserable billing your life at 50 minutes an hour. Not saying that every lawyer is miserable, but I know a lot of them that are, because they went on this path because the world told them to do that. That wasn't their dream. Do you really connect with this dream? And then I'm going to connect it with Einstein. It's a benevolent universe. If it's really, truly your dream, I promise you, you're going to have the gifts, talents, and superpowers and resources and access to do it, because something wants to live that dream through you. Something greater than you. That's not just your dream. That's a little seed. That's a little seed that you get to fertilize. And maybe you have to gain some skills, and maybe you have to learn something, and maybe you have to kind of push yourself a little bit to make a few steps forward and actually commit some money or effort or resources towards it, whatever it might be. But that seed wants to sprout. It's dying to sprout. Otherwise, it wouldn't be talking to you. And when that seed sprouts, then you fertilize it a little bit more and you grow it. What do? You pour love on it, effort, energy, stamina, grit, all these things. We go for these experiences to go to build this experience. And then it's going to flower. It's going to blossom. It's going to grow into something. Right. And maybe it's a thriving business, or maybe it's a beautiful marriage, or maybe it's the kids you always wanted to have, or maybe, whatever it is. It doesn't matter what it is. The universe is ambivalent what it is. You just go live your dream inside of you, because what the universe wants is the experience of creating it. The universe is actually not that all that interested in the outcome. We in our material, world are very obsessed with outcomes and metrics, and can you measure it? And do you not have status and rank? And do you make a lot of money? The universe is really much more interested in that creation process, because that's where you grow.
Well, the experience.
If you ask almost every very successful entrepreneur, if you ask them, once they've achieved nirvana, right? And maybe they sold their business for hundreds of millions or tens of millions, whatever it is. If you ask them, what was the fun? What was like, they will all tell you. I remember when we just started it and we were just growing it. And we were like, all these challenges that seemed insurmountable, and we overcame them. And then, it was a journey. But the selling itself, you rarely hear an entrepreneur say that was the highlight. It was the journey.
We've delved deep, Robert, today, consciousness. And I feel that we've come to a level of inspiration and practical outtakes too from the conversation. So I just wanted to thank you for coming on and sharing. I can see you're very passionate about this, and I really did get a lot out of it, and I hope the audience did too. I'm sure they will. Guys, we'll stick the links in there to Robert so you can reach out to him, connect with him, and definitely pick up a copy of his book. I'm sure you'll enjoy the read there as well, Love and Truth. Robert, thank you again for coming on the show.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you. I really appreciate it. You let me talk, I go. So I'm passionate. This is what I'm passionate about, because I really, my greatest passion is to show people how powerful they are. Everybody is so much more powerful than they realize. Every single one of us is an absolute powerhouse, and every single one of us has beauty inside of us. And it's like, how do we get this beauty expressed into the world? Whatever that beauty is, whatever talent that is, I don't care what it is. Be a master carpenter, that's beautiful. Or, build an empire. Doesn't matter. It's just parse that beauty out of you, and everybody has the power to do that.
Right, thank you. You've lifted us today. Robert, thanks for coming on, guys. Check it out, thehiddenwhy.com. Until next time, peace, passion, and purpose. See you soon. Thanks, guys, for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed what you heard. I hope you love what you're hearing. If you like this episode, guys, or any of the episodes that you're listening to here at The Hidden Why, please do me a favor by sharing it. You can share it with your families, you can share it with your loved ones. You can do that by using your favorite social media channels, using the icons on the platform that you're listening to The Hidden Why podcast. Also, guys, if you're a fan of the show, please connect with me. Connect with me at thehiddenwhy.com. I love to hear from you. I love to converse with the people that listen to this show to find out what they enjoy, what they don't enjoy, and perhaps if they have any questions or feedback for the show as well. You can stay up to date with all that I'm releasing here, guys. I do a solo show every Monday, a 3-minute thought every Thursday. I do 2 interviews a week on a Wednesday and a Saturday, and a book review every Friday. You can stay up to date with all that by subscribing to my newsletter at thehiddenwhy.com. Just enter your email address there, and also subscribing to the podcast on the platform that you choose to listen to your podcast. You can also support the show, guys, by using the Amazon links at thehiddenwhy.com. So if you like books, you can get all the books that I review there, and anything else really that you like to purchase through Amazon. So use that link, it helps support the show. And we've also got a deal with Audible, guys. Audible is a fantastic way to listen to all your favorite books. We've got a deal with them so you can get 2 free books when you subscribe, or subscribe to a 30-day free trial. So check that out again at thehiddenwhy.com. Guys, that's it from me. You know what to do. Go out there, breathe more passion into every single moment. Do everything with greater purpose, and in doing so you will discover your hidden why. This is The Hidden Why. My name's Lee Martinuzzi. Until next time, peace, passion and purpose. See you soon.